This is one of my favorite times, our time of meditation. So I invite you to get things out of your lap. Get those feet firmly planted on the ground so you can become centered and grounded in Mother Earth. If you're comfortable, close your eyes. We'll take some deep breaths, breathing in and letting it go. Breathing in and breathing out that beautiful breath of God. I invite you to see that breath coming in and through your heart space, expanding your heart and opening yourself to this meditation today. You might see that breath coming in, going to the top of your head, up to your crown chakra, and then breathing it all the way down into Mother Earth. Feeling that connection with all that is. Feeling grounded and centered right here and right now. There's no place you have to be, nothing else you have to do. Just be. Be here and be now, as the song said. You remember the story of Jesus and the disciples. Jesus had fallen asleep in the boat. He was on a cushion, and the disciples became worried because the boat was tossing and turning. And they begged him to wake up. Wake up. And what did Jesus do but just say 3 words? Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. We have to train our monkey minds to know that we're not emptying our heads of all thought. We're simply being present here and now and knowing this. We are not our thoughts. They're just thoughts. We are not our emotions. We're not our feelings. We're not even our bodies. We are spirit. And so when you're breathing in and breathing out and you're thinking to yourself and you're saying to your mind, peace, be still, you're dominating that thought process and you're calming the waves in your mind. If we understand that we, as spiritual beings, have authority over our emotions and our thoughts, we can speak with that authority and claim it. We rebuke the turbulence in our minds and in our hearts. And we become present here and now to the knowing that all there is God. It's our principle one in unity. There is nothing else. So we say to ourselves, peace, be still. Feel your body relaxing. Your shoulders falling off of your earlobes and letting the chair completely support your back. In this time, we demonstrate that spirit is who we are. And so I invite you now, as we go into a few moments of quiet, to continue to remind your body, your mind, your emotions, your thoughts, peace be still in the silence. When we acknowledge the presence and the power of God that we are, and we claim our divine birthright, we are 100% human, but we are 100% divine. And in claiming that, and in standing in a grounded and centered place, and knowing the truth, and holding that, and speaking our power through our throat chakra, peace, be still. We can train our minds to let go and let God be God in us, as us, and through us as these divine beings we came to be, to express as much of God through us as our consciousness will allow. And so this mighty work that we're doing is raising our consciousness. And as we raise our consciousness, we raise the entire vibration of the planet as well. And so we're grateful for this opportunity to remember who we are, remember what we are, remember the truth of us, claim it, and move forward in our lives knowing and trusting in the divine order of the universe. So now we begin to bring our attention back into this room. Whenever you're ready, just open your beautiful eyes. Welcome back. So we're talking about finding your inner peace. Interesting. This whole month we're talking about peace. So there was this group of factory workers, and they had a particularly tyrannical kind of boss. They didn't even really look forward to going to work because this guy just had this kind of attitude, you know? And they whined and they complained and they were unhappy, and things kept going like that. It was not pleasant to be there. There was no peace in the workplace. And then one bright light amongst them said, I'd like to try something different. I'd like to give blessings, send words of blessings to our boss. She knew that this practice works. So she convinced a nucleus of her coworkers to change their perspective a bit. Instead of complaining and whining and griping all the time about how he was, would they please join her in beaming good thoughts to him, blessing him and praising him? So they frequently affirmed this: we bless you for the good that is in you. We like you because we understand you. Sending this, saying this, and replacing their frowns with smiles, replacing their complaining all the time with trying to find some good in everything that was going on around them. Soon they learned to know their foreman, and the fact that he had an increasingly large load on him at home. They had no idea what his caregiving responsibilities were. And of course, he probably wasn't getting the rest, and so he was coming to work grouchy and taking it out on everybody around him. Soon, they actually started to like him. His attitude improved immensely as this nucleus continued to bless him, and the whole atmosphere of the factory and that particular department transformed. One person's idea, one person using the blessing technique, and then what? They began to experience peace in the workplace. It wasn't so miserable anymore. We can change our environment by seeing the good in it and blessing the good that's already there, you see. That gratitude that we talked about in the Daily Word today, that value of appreciation raises the vibration. The griping, the complaining, it brings the vibration really down, doesn't it? It makes everybody miserable, and that's contagious as well. So we are talking about peace this whole month. This is our affirmation, so let's say it together. In quiet times of prayer, I am filled with a sense of tranquility. So don't we love a little tranquility in our lives? I don't know about you, but I do. And so as I was preparing for this talk today, I ran across this book from 1954. It's an old Unity book. It's by Clara Barringer, and it's called Peace Begins at Home. And early in the book, she talks about how many people prayed for peace during World War II because all they wanted was for the war to be over, right? Because they felt like if the war was over, they would experience peace. But she says, but the peace that Jesus referred to when he said, my peace I leave with you, my peace I give you, means a whole lot more than just absence of war. That's not it really at all. It means day by day we're living in peace. We're being peace. We're showing up as that, right? She says lasting peace will never be achieved until the things that make for war are rooted out of men's hearts and minds. Now she's talking about women too, but you know that languaging in the olden days. The men's minds. Everybody's minds have to have rooted out of it those things that create war in the first place. So we know this. We know that this is always an inside job. That's why I love this blessing technique so much, because you don't have to be a part of a situation. You can be observing a situation and holding the space for it like we are with LA. We don't have to be there, but we can feel it, and we're sending love and blessings and rain to those folks. We send that from our place of groundedness and centeredness in the God of our being, knowing that no matter what the appearance, God is in all of it. No matter what, no matter how scary it is. And so we see it good. We see it with our spiritual eyes, not with our human eyes, not with our physical eyes. We see it with our spiritual eyes, and we hold that in spite of appearances. And then what? And then we know we can trust. We can trust in divine order unfolding. But we have to do this work first in our own consciousness, because we can make a difference. We do make a difference. Clara Barringer reminds us that as individuals, we can't just sit apart and think we don't have to do anything. That helps no one. It takes all of us individualized expressions working together collectively. If we want to make an impact and have peace on earth, it takes a lot of people living that spiritual life. In an age of materialism, it's not easy to live the spiritual life. It sometimes feels like we're going against the grain, doesn't it? But we are holding that light and that vision for our world. It means that we have to let go of our own judgments and our own behaviors that keep us from not being in peace. So today we're in Scripture. We're in Matthew 5, verse 9. I love this. This is the Beatitudes. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. So this is when Jesus is ministering to the people, and he's telling them these are the things you can do to make your life easier. So blessed are those who find God's peace in them, who harmonize their thoughts with spiritual laws that we know work. Because we know that attitudes of blessing will prove beneficial for all of us. Anybody who uses and accepts that. So it's essential to remember that Jesus was dealing with consciousness. He was dealing with states of mind, states of attitude, attitudes of being. Be attitudes. Don't you love that? What is your attitude going to be? He wasn't talking about doing things that you had to do. He was talking about your beingness. How are you showing up as? What are you going to be? He wasn't telling us what to do or what to be, that we may gain that and maintain that consciousness state of blessed oneness with our highest good. To bless is to invoke or call upon, a call from action of God, calling on and conferring with God's good on someone or something. And so the power of blessing imparts that quickening spiritual power, and it makes things happen. Because we aren't victims, we are empowered spiritual beings, and we create change in our lives. And when we change in our life, we change other people's lives as well, people who we live around and can influence from our own behavior. So Emmett Fox says in Sermon on the Mount, so aptly describes the peacemakers that Jesus spoke of in the Beatitudes. He says, here is where we receive an invaluable lesson in prayer, our returning to the communion with God. Prayer is the only thing, he says, that changes character, that changes situations. Think about it. When we're showing up and being that presence and power of God, your whole life gets simpler and easier when you're being that. And you bring a sense of peace and serenity to everybody around you. It's kind of a good contagious, if you want to think about it that way. When you're being that way, I had a licensed Unity teacher in my previous ministry, Maria Gonzalez, who was a godsend to me. And I've shared this story with you lots of times before. All she ever did was say, pray for love. If you don't know what to pray for love. Pray for love, darling. Pray. She was the most loving person I have ever known in my life. It just followed her everywhere. I'm thinking of her this week because she passed in 2020, but her beloved Ricardo passed. And this past week they had a full-blown military service for him, and they put her ashes in his casket so they could be together. People, one person can make a difference. That woman made a lot of difference in a lot of people's lives. So Friday in our basics class, we were talking about how do we emulate this presence and the power of God, this principle one, when we know that God is all there is. How do we stay in that? How do we stay grounded in that? It's not easy when there's challenging times all around us to stay in that frame of mind. But when we embody and we know and we believe at the core of our being that God is all there is, then we have to know from spiritual seeing that God is all there is. So it means God is in everything, all the time, always. Never not God, right? So prayer is where the change takes place. I believe that this condition of mind that we're aspiring to be, that Jesus was talking about in the Beatitudes, means that for those of us who are doing the work, we cannot have resentment or grudges or unforgiveness in our lives, because you can't be two things at one time. You can only be either light or dark, right? Lightness or darkness. What are you going to be? What are you choosing? How are you choosing to live your life? You want to see the good, so it's up to us to have power and dominion over our thoughts and our emotions, because when we have control over our thoughts and our emotions, there is nothing that we can't accomplish. There's nothing that we can't do. That's how powerful we are. But there can be no peace if we're not in serenity first. And so acquiring inner peace is probably the most rewarding state of mind we can achieve. And it's such a blessing to everybody around us when we're in that peaceful place and not that angry place, right? That's how we want to impact people. We all know what it's like. We've experienced the peace, even if it's only been momentarily. We've experienced the peace and know what that's like. So we aspire now to live from that ideal level of consciousness, but it takes our time and our attention and our focus. And so I have a few suggestions. I have 7 few suggestions. I will call them stepping stones. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time because we have other things we're going to do today. But these are practices and attitude shifts that you can choose or not to encompass in your lives that can help you stay in peace, perhaps a little bit longer than just every now and then, right? So the first one, I've already mentioned it once, is forgiveness. You cannot be in peace if you are holding a grudge against another being. So forgiving yourself first and then forgiving all others, because this, if you can't do the forgiveness work, you have a stumbling block. You're going to have a hard time finding the peace if you can't forgive. So that's number one. The second one is appreciation. We've already talked about that a little bit today already. Counting our blessings for everything, all the little things in your life that we take for granted, like our homes, running water, right? Food in our pantry. All the small things that we normally take for granted. The third thing is, hello, God. Somebody's calling, is put God first. So that means principle 1, carrying it to the max. Principle 1 helps us put things in perspective, doesn't it? God is. That's our principle 1. When we do the hand, God is all there is. There is nothing else. So when in doubt, when you're having struggles, you go back to principle 1. The fourth one is, behold the Christ in everyone. See the Christ. I don't care if they're yelling or screaming. We talked about this in Unity Basics too. I don't care if they're yelling or screaming at you. You see the Christ in them, because there isn't anybody that isn't the beloved of God. So you see the Christ in everyone. Since we're made in the image and likeness of God, we all have that. And it's so much easier to be in peace when we don't have enemies or adversaries. If we have those, then we can't be in peace because it's niggling at our hearts, right? The fifth one is acceptance. Oh, this is a big one. This, going with the flow thing. Like, come on, bring it on. Whatever's going on in my life, I can be okay with this. I'm looking to see what the good is. Oh my gosh, I don't know what this is, but I'm blessing it, right? staying in the flow no matter what appears in your life. Acceptance is huge, especially when we go through trials and tribulations in our lives. But this step alone will give you such a great feeling of peace on a day-to-day basis. The sixth one is open your senses to wonder and awe. You know, be like my 2-year-old Raylan granddaughter. Wow, Ema! Wow, Moon! Everything is such an amazing thing to her. I want to, that keeps me young, being around her and feeling that wonder and awe of newness. So seeing the good, seeing the joy, seeing the beauty. We live in a wonderful place. We have lots of beauty to behold. So doing that for yourself. And then the seventh one, and I could go on for a long time, but these are kind of like the top 7, prayer. You pray before and you pray after. You always start with prayer. You don't go into any meeting. You don't go into anything, right, unless you have prayer first. You pray yourself up and you pray up the people that you're coming to be with. You see the good. You hold the good. You feel the highest and best for them. It's what opens us up. If we don't pray, then we're not open to receive the guidance that Spirit is trying to tap and get through to our noggins, right? So we have to pray. So one of my favorites is the prayer of St. Francis. So just take in the words. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let me sow love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, and to be loved as to love. For it is in the giving that we receive, and it is in the pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is the dying that we are born to eternal life. Can you imagine for just a moment what our world would be like if everybody lived like that? Right? So open and so receptive. I can't even imagine. I want to imagine it, but I'll tell you this, the more of us that live from a place of finding our inner peace, the better chance our world has of receiving it. The more of us, there is a tipping point at which when enough people are feeling the peace, believing in the peace, seeing the peace, knowing it's here, now, as we claim it, there will be a change. And that's our work. Okay, time for a joke. Enough preaching. So there was a grandma, and she was on the airplane. She was making her first trip to America, and the flight had barely started when she's already looking for the flight attendant. So she calls the flight attendant over, and the lady comes over, and she says, how can I help you? And she said, well, is there anything you can do about the popping in my ears? My ears just won't stop popping. And she, oh, sure. She reaches in her pocket, and she pulls out some chewing gum. She gives her some chewing gum. So the whole flight goes. She never bothers anybody again. And at the end of it, she goes up to the flight attendant, and she says, wow, thank you. That really helped a lot. Now, can you tell me how to get the gum out of my ears? Ooh. Right? I know. So there's a quote from Paul Ferrini. It's on a poster. I put it on the bulletin board out there if you want to take a picture of it. It says, without peace within, peace in the world is an empty wish. And I took this from the Association of Global New Thought. We'll be preparing for the season of nonviolence. And this is what happens when we get to these 64 days that are celebrated are the days between the anniversaries of the deaths of Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King. So it starts January 30th when Gandhi died, and April the 4th when Martin Luther King made his transition. And so for every single day, they have a focus. You can go to the website, and every day, beginning January 30th through April 4th, you can have an affirmation and a quotation and a practice. And it's a beautiful way to just have a reminder that being nonviolent is what we want to be, right? And so this coming weekend begins all the MLK celebrations because Monday's the holiday, right? And so on Saturday, the Blanchard House Museum is having a breakfast, and I'm a part of that. It's Martha Beretta and the Blanchard House folks will be there. So there'll be a few of us from the church that will be there, and I'm doing the closing piece of it. Martha wants us to do the song that we sing at the end of our service, the peace song, to end the service. So it's going to be beautiful. So I put the poster, the MLK poster is also out on the bulletin board. You can take a picture of it. If you can join us next Saturday for breakfast, it's a lovely, all the police, the commissioners, everybody comes out to celebrate the children who are reading their essays about why MLK is important. So I invite you to participate in that. In an interview in 1965, Dr. King said, "World peace through nonviolence means is neither absurd nor unattainable. All other methods have failed. We must begin anew. Those of us who believe in this method can be voices of reason, sanity, and understanding amid the voices of violence, hatred, and emotion. We can very well set a mood of peace out of which a system of peace can be built." And that's the way it is today. Namaste. Thank you. Now we have another beautiful song. We're calling the ushers up for our gifts and blessing our tithes and gifts however they come into this ministry, and they come many different ways, and we're so grateful for all those avenues. Let's say this together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, that this is so.